The wine glass clicked softly as Brielle raised it, smirking. "Still doing that trash work?" she asked, her voice sweet and sharp like broken glass. "Honestly, it's impressive how far you've managed to get with nothing but grease and garbage." The table laughed, not loud, just enough to sting. Dad chuckled, swirling his wine. "Well, at least she's not out on the street," he said. "Could be worse, right?" Mom didn't say anything. She never did when it was me. I stood near the entrance of the private dining room, unnoticed, exactly how they liked me. They thought I was the hostess. A waitress maybe, staff, not blood. I hadn't seen them in 3 years. No calls, no visits, just silence, until Brielle emailed me. "Can you get us a table at Rhea's?" She wrote. No hello, no how are you, just an assumption I'd still be small. They didn't know I was the owner. They didn't know the name Rhea's on the door was mine. And I didn't tell them, because I wanted to see if they'd changed. They hadn't. As I turned to leave the room quietly, a man entered behind me. Tall, suited, confident. He looked around, nodding with appreciation. Then he pointed toward me and asked, "Excuse me, do you know who owns this place?" I turned around. And for the first time that night, I smiled. I wasn't born a fighter. I became one the night they closed the door in my face. I was 19, standing on the front steps with a backpack, tears mixing with rain while my father said, "If you're not going to college, you're not going to live here. No goodbye, no hug, just shame because I chose kitchens over classrooms." Brielle stood behind him, arms crossed, proud of how fast they gave up on me. I took the bus downtown that night, slept in a shelter, got my first job scrubbing toilets at a cheap diner by the freeway. They didn't even pay hourly, just handed me cash in an envelope every Friday. I learned every inch of that kitchen, how to stretch scraps into meals, how to clean fryers without burning skin, how to survive on black coffee and leftover rice. 3 years later, I had 2 jobs, no sleep, and enough savings to rent a 600-square-foot space with broken sinks and peeling paint. Reyes was born from that room. I painted walls at night, cooked in borrowed pans, burned dishes, cried over bills, slept on sacks of rice in the back during slow shifts. But I never stopped. No one helped me. Certainly not the people laughing at my table tonight. The suited man stood just behind me, looking around the room like someone who knew good things when he saw them. "Who owns this place?" he asked again, nodding in appreciation. "The design, the food, the energy, it's flawless." All eyes turned to me. Brielle looked annoyed, like his question had interrupted her performance. I stepped forward, just enough so everyone could hear. "I do," I said evenly. "I'm Liana Reyes. I own this restaurant." The air shifted. Forks paused mid-bite. Brielle's smirk cracked. Dad's hand froze over his wine glass. "You own it?" Mom asked, barely audible. The man smiled wide. "Incredible. You've created something remarkable here. I run a hospitality group, and I've toured restaurants all year. This is easily one of the best I've seen. Please, call me Marco, we should talk." I shook his hand. "Thank you, Marco, I'd be happy to." Then I turned back to my family. Brielle's mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked like she'd swallowed her insult whole. Dad looked down at his plate, suddenly quiet. The same people who had called me a trash worker were now sitting in my restaurant, eating my food, shocked, speechless by the truth they never cared to know. And I hadn't even begun. The silence dragged, heavy and awkward, until Brielle finally broke it. "You never said anything," she snapped, trying to sound offended, like she was the one betrayed. "We thought you were just working here." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean scrubbing trash, like you said earlier?" She winced. Dad cleared his throat. "Why didn't you tell us, Liana?" "We would have..." "Would have what?" I cut in. "Supported me? Believed in me? Stayed in touch?" I let the words sink in. "You didn't want to know who I became. You only cared about who I wasn't. A lawyer, a doctor, someone impressive enough for your dinner parties." Brielle's voice went flat. "You still could have mentioned it. No need to be so dramatic." I walked toward their table, calm and controlled. "You sat here," I said, gesturing to the wine, the handcrafted plates, the chef-curated courses, eating my food, in my space, while calling me a poor trash worker. "And now," I added, looking Brielle dead in the eye, "you're tasting exactly what that trash built." No one laughed this time. They tried to regroup, pretend it wasn't a big deal. Mom gave a nervous laugh. Well, all that matters is we're proud of you now. Now, not when I was sleeping in kitchens. Not when I called once and Brielle told me, just Google food banks. Not when I invited them to my soft opening 2 years ago, and no one replied. Only now, because success had made me visible. Marco, the suited man, gave me a respectful nod and stepped away, promising to follow up about investment options. The moment he left, Brielle leaned across the table, her tone shifting. If you're doing so well, maybe you could help with Dad's retirement plan, she said sweetly. And I was actually thinking of getting into business too. A cafe, maybe. With your help, of course. I blinked. You want me to invest in you? I asked. She smiled like it was a joke, like it was obvious. I turned, walked to the back, and returned moments later with a leather bill folder. Dad frowned. What's that? I placed it on the table. The full bill for the private dinner. No discount, no comp, no family rate. You invited yourselves. You insulted me. You dined like royalty, I said. The least you can do is pay like it. Brielle stared. You're serious? As serious as you were when you called me trash. She looked to Mom, then Dad, but no one came to her rescue. Eventually, Dad pulled out his card and muttered, Fine. They left quietly. No hugs, no photos. No, we're so proud of you. Just stiff goodbyes and bitter expressions. As they walked out the door, I didn't follow. I stayed at the entrance, arms crossed, watching them disappear into the night like guests who had overstayed their welcome. I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. For years, I'd carried their words like shackles. Now, all I carried was my name. On the door, on the menu, on every plate that left my kitchen. They never saw me as worthy until a stranger did. But I wasn't here to prove myself to them anymore. Later that night, as we cleaned up, one of my staff asked, Hey, who were those people? They were intense. I smiled. Just people who taught me exactly what kind of woman I'd never be. Then I flipped the lights off, locked the doors to my restaurant, and walked home. For the first time, fully at peace with leaving them outside, forever.